I love finding hidden gem RPGs. They're often cheap, full of love from their developers, and can very often be a highlight of the year. I've played many excellent games of this type: Witchspring R, Opus Echo of Starsong, Cosmic Star Heroine, all of them taking a spot on my previous top 10 lists. When it works out as planned, it's great. When it doesn't though, oh boy. Not every lesser known game is going to be a hit, and on this occasion I found a dud. That dud is Progress Orders, developed by Hakama Inc., the same team behind the Rune Factory series. And this is the thing, I had this game on my wishlist last year. It was announced near the end of 2024 and immediately plastered the name of Yoshifumi Hashimoto everywhere, along with the Rune Factory series he produced, not to mention Story of Seasons 2. That's some pedigree right there, and it sounded similar in concept to games like Nelk and the Legendary Alchemists, combining this management sim element with RPG fundamentals. Technically they were right, but at the same time they also intended to deceive as well. Here's a little excerpt of how they sold the game. Use various facilities like the blacksmith, item shop and garden to support each of the unique adventurers at the 3D rendered guild. Complex dungeons progress automatically for each party, and you may choose to step in during monster encounters, which develop into the thrilling strategic leading command battles. You can alternatively have the adventurers fight on their own and focus on your other tasks. Parties include 6 members, 3 men and 3 women. Each of your stories with them will unfold as you develop further relationships with the partners. Build up your guild while getting closer with your favourite partners. Now that sounds promising. I will admit I wasn't too sold on the idea of complex dungeons progressing automatically. That doesn't sound complex at all, but whatever. The description seemed alright to me. So I bought it on release day back in April, fired it up, and 12 hours later I have given up on it completely. It should give you an idea as to how much of a letdown the game was if I was only able to stomach a little over 10 hours in a month and a half. Progress Orders, unless I actively seek out RPG shovelware in the lead up to the end of 2025, will undoubtedly be the worst game I play this year. It is an amalgamation of tedium, lack of polish, and ideas that simply don't work in practice. But if you're still curious, that's what the video is for. You can make your own mind up when it's done. Initially, its first impression is terrible. On the PC version at least, the very first thing you see as you start up is an option to choose your resolution, and it's limited to 720p or 1080p, nothing else. I mean, really? That's the first thing you want me to see of your game? That just screams unfinished. Plus, it doesn't even save your setting. You have to re-choose it every time you launch the game. Great start. Now when you actually start the game, Progress Orders begins with the self-insert protagonist on his way to the Leglia Guild to find his lost grandfather. On the way, he's attacked by a monster and a group of adventurers save him. Those adventurers then escort our protag to the guild, where he soon acquires the ability of clairvoyance, which allows him to communicate telepathically with adventurers who explore dungeons. And because they're too dumb to act by themselves, the protagonist, who has no adventuring experience at all might I add, becomes their ace in the hole, guiding the groups with commands. In short, the story is as generic as it gets. You are the chosen one because of a random ass power, and now you need to use it for the good of the guild, immediately being put into a position of power as its assistant manager. It's pretty much campfire cooking in another world with my absurd skill, but with a guild. Now of course, I played 12 hours of this game, so I didn't see it to its conclusion, but I saw no promise with the narrative at all. The developments were mundane, the dialogue was wooden, and none of the characters went beyond a predefined trope. You've got the 1,000-year-old witch who looks like a kid, the rookie who wants to be a hero, the overly pedantic receptionist, they're all here. It showed no promise or meaningful build-up in those 12 hours, so I fully expect it's going to remain limp right to the end. The presentation is also as bare bones as it gets, visual novel style with an image in the background and still sprites on the screen as voiceovers play. Japanese only, by the way. I will say I've got no issue with visual novel presentation. I've played plenty, but the reason they work is because the writing is often of a high caliber, so it makes every scene engaging. Progress Orders doesn't even come close. I found it very interesting as well that the foreboding visions the protagonist had of death and evil were represented by this pool of Tizer rather than, I don't know, an actual image of what's being talked about. Lumps of flesh, dead bodies. I'm no necrophiliac, but I would actually like to see a representation of these oh so harrowing visions, please. This takes use your imagination to a completely different level, if this horrible screeching sound doesn't make you pass out first, that is.
見つかった君の視界に広がるのは空から見下ろす王国の地表そして各地のダンジョンから伝説に聞く魔界の蓋が開いたかのごとく
When I finally did get to the gameplay though, I wish I could have just gone back to the story so I wouldn't be exposed to it. The core offering of progress orders is a joke. Initially, its UI is an absolute mess, both in battle and while back in the guild. I've seen mobile games with less clutter than this. One of my biggest annoyances with it is that you cannot completely close the world map. The best you get is this little cut-in on the left-hand side. No idea why, but that's what they went with, and it looks awful. Now, my initial impressions for this game was that I would get to go out and explore dungeons with the parties that hang around the guild, just like with Nelk, but that's not the case at all. The gameplay is actually very shallow. This little area with the guild and its surrounding shops, get used to seeing it because it's the only place you'll get to explore for the entire game. Outside of some story events, you do not leave this guild ever. Now, the role that you take in progress orders is very much a guild manager, and that entails all the tedium that goes along with it. This is effectively an RPG admin simulator. Like, if you're familiar with any fantasy anime like Konosuba, Goblin Slayer, Danmachi, you know, any anime that had a guild and a receptionist in it who was a minor character, well, in progress orders, you are that minor character. You're the one sorting out all the paperwork and funding while everyone else gets to do the fun stuff. And this gameplay is presented in the most uninspired way possible, the most lazy way possible. Menus. Endless menus. Navigate through them, send the party off on a mission, go to a shop to give them funding, rinse and repeat. This is not gameplay. It is busy work. You run around like some sort of errand boy who has an endless list of tasks to complete. Even worse though, these menus don't even give all the information you need. The upgrade system, for one, is just needlessly cumbersome. The shops surrounding the guild, like the farm, the blacksmith, the alchemist, all of them have various parts that can be upgraded. To do this, you have to allocate funds. Okay, sounds easy enough. I've allocated funds here and it says 7 days. The conclusion I think many would get from this is that after spending that money, it will now take 7 days for my smithing to progress to level 2. But progress orders somehow makes an element as simple as upgrading the equivalent of reading kanji upside down while pissed up on 6 pints of San Miguel. What I have done here is not actually level up smithing. No, instead it gives me points to upgrade smithing, and I believe the 7-day timer was basically the time it would take until I would get those points. To actually upgrade the smithing, you have to press the right bumper, which then brings up a list, and in there you can level it up. Plus, it doesn't even give you a count of how many resources you have, you'll only know you can upgrade it by pressing on the option and checking each one. Using the blacksmith again as the example, what about equipment? I see a sword here, so let's buy one and give it to an adventurer. Wait, what have I done? I don't see a sword in my inventory, but it says it's active. Right, so here's the lowdown. By spending money on the sword, the blacksmith will now use those funds to support the entire team. So in other words, I've spent my money for 14 days active service, like some sort of subscription. Plus, when it runs out, it doesn't actually tell you what facility has expired. It only says a facility has ended. The only way to tell is by looking at this small bar at the top, which gives you all of the icons. Otherwise, you're kept up to date by constant reminders in the bottom left, one by one, and it looks terrible. I mean, really guys, this is the best you could come up with? Talking about one by one, you can only activate one element of a shop at a time. You cannot do 2 at once. Even worse, some of the names for the shop sections aren't consistent, like this one. In one area, it says I need to level up menu diversification to unlock this food buff, but in the other, it's called menu expansion. Yes, it doesn't take a genius to figure out they're the same thing, but it clearly shows a lack of polish if simple consistency isn't there. Sheesh, we haven't even got to the combat yet. So, as the guild manager, you can send out a number of parties to explore dungeons with the aim of completing a mission. By the way, just like the shops, you can only do 1 mission per dungeon at a time. Once the party is in the dungeon, time passes, and every now and then an event will pop up on the screen. It's here where you make the choice as to whether you want to take active control or leave it to the party. Plus it will display how likely they are to succeed against the enemy if you choose to let them handle it alone. But even this feels off. You can see here that my power level is miles above the enemy, but even then my probability of success is limited to 80%. It never goes above that. In the same breath though, there are situations where I'm actually weaker than the enemy, but it still shows an 80% chance of winning. I quickly discovered that it wasn't reliable. The party died more often fighting without my help, so that left me with little option but to intervene. It's a turn-based battle system. Every member of the party has a defined role and skills. The battle is split into 3 phases, so the top row of skills represents the first phase, the middle is the second, and the bottom is the final one. You can also see what the enemy is going to do by checking this area right here. Now, for all my issues with the game, the combat is half decent. There's importance placed on synergizing abilities for higher damage and also keeping an eye on the enemy to see what they'll be doing per phase. For example, if they're going to do a heavy-hitting party-wide attack, then the best course is to try and paralyze them or stun them before they can get it off. There's certainly strategy there. The issue though is that it's far too limited because of something called command points. Every time you change a move, the command point counter will go down, so it essentially only gives you a limited amount of commands per dungeon crawl. Yeah, not per battle, per dungeon crawl. And some dungeons can consist of upward of 4 fights. When that runs out, you cannot do anything, you just have to hope for the best. Again, why? One of the only positives of this game, and they somehow managed to screw that up as well. Not to mention, they add insult to injury by making each fight timed. If you don't finish them before the maximum phases are reached, then you automatically lose. It's like they actively were trying to make the game as annoying as possible. In the cases that you do get to the end though, sometimes there will be an event which will be represented by a text box, because of course it would be, we don't do cutscenes here. If the party you sent has the right skill to complete the puzzle, then you also complete the mission. So for instance, you might need an investigation team for a scouting mission, or stealth for infiltration, and so on. And these missions are marked by an icon before you begin. Unfortunately, just having the skill doesn't guarantee success though. I sent investigation specific teams for investigation missions and they would still fail. I'm not sure if it was tied to level or something else, nor did I really care by that point. There are social elements in this game, sort of like bonding events, but the terrible writing makes them as wooden as Pinocchio, and there are also some party-specific missions for a semblance of depth, but once again, the writing brings it down. Other than that, it is an absolute slog. The only good thing I can say about Progress Orders is its opening theme tune. That's pretty good. So it at least has nice packaging, but once you lift the lid on the tin, you'll find a horde of cockroaches that have eaten the entire cake. As of the time of recording, Progress Orders is £16.75 on Steam, and it's not even worth that as far as I'm concerned. A lack of budget is not an excuse to make a poor game. I'll always advocate that. There are plenty of developers who work on a shoestring but also make excellent games, and it's not like Hakama is strapped for funds considering the games they've worked on and the commercial success that has come with that. If you want to play some great games cheaper than this, get Cosmic Star Heroine or Bloomtown. They're much more deserving of your time. As for Progress Orders, it's better off forgotten. Let it sink to the bottom of the barrel and shut the lid forever. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe for more JRPG content, and consider joining my Patreon if you're interested. Peace.